being an entrepreneur is a 24/7 job. And when you're hiring, you need a partner that works as hard as you do. That hiring partner is LinkedIn Jobs. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, get qualified candidates that you can manage all in one place. For one thing, there you could post a job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people. You get qualified candidates. At the end of the day, the most important thing to your business is the quality of the candidates. And with LinkedIn, of course, you can feel confident that you're getting the best. Based on LinkedIn data, 72% of small and medium businesses say using LinkedIn helps them find high quality candidates. Find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Altucher. That's linkedin.com/Altucher to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
This message comes from Capital One. With the Spark Cash Plus card from Capital One, you earn unlimited 2% cash back on every purchase and get big purchasing power so your business can spend more and earn more. Stephen, Brandon, and Bruno, the business owners of SandCloud, reinvested their 2% cash back to help build the company's retail presence. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Find out more at CapitalOne.com/SparkCashPlus. Terms apply.
Today on The James Altucher Show.
Was Ice Cube a gangbanger? No. Was Dr. Dre a gangbanger? No. Was Tupac a gangbanger? No. Weirdly, was Suge Knight a gangbanger? No. Suge Knight, head of Death Row Records, was from Compton, but he was a football marching band kid, who surrounded himself with gangbangers. Tupac was like, F that guy, I'm not letting him come. Biggie was dumbfounded that Tupac held him in blame for his shooting at Quad Studios. The whole thing is sad. There was this time period where people were caught up in something that was half real, half contrived, that didn't really mean anything. These are two gifted young artists, smart guys who rose up from tough circumstances to become great. And for them to both go out like that is just disturbing. It just sucks.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is The James Altucher Show.
Tupac Shakur, one of the greatest rap artists ever, sadly shot and killed almost 2 decades ago. What else is there left to be said about him? What new things can be said? Well, Jeff Pearlman, in the book Only God Can Judge Me, The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur, we have a talk about what he has uncovered in his research and why he was excited to write this book about Tupac, a brand new book about Tupac. But I have a little story to tell you. So back in the 90s, I had a company that was building websites, and I think it was 1997 or 98. Tupac's mom wanted to put out a new album of his music and make a website around that album. And so I went in to pitch my services. I remember specifically, it was going to be a $90,000 job, which would have allowed me to make payroll for yet another month. I was always concerned, can I make payroll this month, each and every month? So I go in there, and I'm all ready to pitch, and the Tupac's manager says, "Okay, here's my computer. Show me what you got." And I had never used a Windows machine, so I had only used Macintoshes for my entire career, and I had no idea even how to turn on the machine. I had majored in computer science. I went to graduate school for computer science. I was a software engineer. I was running this company for a couple of years already. But I had never used a Windows machine, like a Microsoft Windows machine. It was like an IBM PC or something. And so I had to tell him, I just don't know. I don't know how to use this machine. And he literally laughed me out of the room. He was like, "You've got to be kidding me. You are trying to pitch me on building Tupac's website and you don't even know how to use a computer." And I said, "Well, I know how to use a Mac, but not." And he wouldn't even let me finish. He's like, "Just get out of here." And so I was really getting kind of anxious because I needed to make payroll, but I did not get that particular deal. But this is a side note. What else is there to talk about with Tupac Shakur? Listen to me and Jeff Pearlman figure it out. So Jeff, obviously you were passionate about the subject, and there's been plenty of stuff written about Tupac. It's like almost 20 years from his death, or more than 20 years from his death. What got you what got you going here? What was it about Tupac Shakur which you had to say?
I thought there was a mystique to him. I think when people die young, a lot of times we accept the mystique as fact and narrative, and we just go along with it. And I just thought there was so much mystique and so much regurgitated material, and not really that much digging and probing and actually looking into them. And I'm a big hip hop fan. I'd written 10 sports books. I wanted to try something different, something sort of out of my wheelhouse a little bit. And I just thought, here's this guy whose music I've listened to, who I know almost shockingly little about. And I just thought, why? Like, my agent, when I told him about it, was like, this doesn't make sense. And I was like, why? He's like, you're a white sports writer. It just doesn't make sense. And I'm like, I know, but I just think someone could do this well. And I've been waiting for this Tupac book that nobody's written. And I have this concept in my head. So I just figured, why not me? And here I sit, wondering why me?
Although I don't know if it's so odd, a white guy writing about Tupac. I mean, clearly 80s and 90s hip hop was delivered specifically to the white customer, I feel like, of course, you know, hip hop culture included a lot of, black people and so on, but white people loved Tupac. White people loved all the groups, that Naughty by Nature, NWA, Digital Underground, which Tupac was in, Wu-Tang Clan, like the whole Biggie. It was all made for white people, were the largest part of the audience.
True, but I wouldn't say Tupac commercially. The record labels, Interscope in this case, certainly knew that there were probably going to be more white consumers than black consumers, just based on the numbers of people in America, the demographics of America. But I wouldn't say Tupac was thinking that, and I would also say his upbringing as a child of a Black Panther and his kind of ethos about Black self-empowerment, Black self-awareness, being told stories about the Panthers and the food programs and the education programs. I think he was an artist who was very much informed by kind of the quote unquote Black experience in America, especially the traumatic Black experience in America. So I do think there was an education that I needed to have to even give this a go. So I do actually understand it, even though I get what you're saying as well.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, again, in a lot of his songs and his whole persona was about Black empowerment, and like you mentioned, his parents had, or his mom in particular, had this Black Panther background, and it's interesting, the different kinds of experience going into hip hop in the 90s, because you had NWA and all those guys who came literally straight out of Compton. You had Wu-Tang Clan from Staten Island, but at the same time, you had, De La Soul and all those groups that were coming out of basically suburban Queens.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of different experiences, but they were all basically pretending to be gangsters.
Well, I wouldn't say De La Soul was pretending to be gangsters.
Not them, and not Tribe Called Quest.
But certainly Tupac had a sort of, especially when he joined Death Row. I mean, Death Row got him out of prison to do a gangster rap album. It wasn't that really much of it wasn't. They weren't hiding much about that. And even like, it's interesting because NWA, I mean, Eazy-E had a pretty hard scrabble background. They all had hard scrabble backgrounds, but was Ice Cube a gangbanger? No. Was Dr. Dre a gangbanger? No. Was Tupac a gangbanger? No. Weirdly, was Suge Knight a gangbanger? No. Suge Knight, head of Death Row Records, was from Compton, but he was a football marching band kid, who surrounded himself with gangbangers. So, I mean, there's a moment that I reported when Tupac was living in Marin City and his mom was just overcome by crack. And he got in a rap battle. He was probably 18 years old, and he got his ass kicked by a 13-year-old. And he was really mortified by it. And this 13-year-old was rapping about what life was like on the streets, and Tupac was rapping about like UEP Newton. And Tupac vanished for 4 days, and he hung around with this guy, Bobby Burton, who was kind of the crack kingpin of Marin City and the sort of gangster ethos of Marin City. And Tupac followed him for 4 days and said, can I just take notes? 5 days, I think. Can I just take notes on what you're doing? And Bobby Burton let this young, aspiring rapper follow him, write down notes, write down what he was doing, observations. So I think Tupac wrote this song, Days of a Criminal. I just think a lot of it is storytelling. Here's what's going on, and I'm going to be the vehicle for which you understand what's happening in the hood, which I think is kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of rap back then was storytelling more so than now. Like I can't really think of rappers now. Well, I don't know what is the difference you think between rap in the '90s and the rap of Tupac and rappers right now.
Well, I think it depends what you're talking about. Like, I think Kendrick Lamar is very much the heir apparent to Tupac and has kind of said his love of Tupac. I think there are certain artists right now who would completely fit in. I mean, the Sonics are a little different, but I think J. Cole is a very old school kind of style rapper. I think Kendrick Lamar is an old school style rapper. JID has certain old school things, but I mean, Drake, I don't think Tupac would even understand what's going on there, and a lot of the so-called, mumble rap, which I hate even using that term, but like Tupac would come along and be a little confused by it all. But that's like, if you listen to Run DMC and Curtis Blow and the Sugar Hill Gang, it's vastly different than 90s rap. Like it's very much more like if you listen to Tupac's first album, Tupacalypse Now, you can hear the impact of Run DMC very much. That did it, didn't, that doesn't really exist anymore. And you started seeing it fade as artists like Tupac, as artists like Biggie, Tribe Called Quest, etc., started incorporating different things. So I just think there's this continuum of hip hop where it changes as it goes along.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think they changed? What was different?
I think they got much more complex. I think the sampling got much more complex. I think the production is a million trillion times better. I think Jay Dilla coming along and doing things offbeat was really important. Like, it just went from a very fantastic but basic idea. Rapping, if you looked in the 80s, you would have newspaper articles explaining. Rapping is when an artist comes along and puts words along with a beat, and the words are synced up with the beat. Well, now a lot of the words aren't synced up with the beat. Now it's sort of rapping, there's a beat, but the words are going left and right and up and down, and there are kind of different things happening at the same time. And I just think that's an evolution. Like if you listen to Tupac, I don't even know what song would be in it. Me and My Girlfriend. Like it's a drastically different song than Run DMC would have put out just a decade earlier. And the music now, if you listen to, I don't even know. Drake is I hate using Drake as an example, but even Drake, or Kanye when he started getting really experimental, it's just drastically different sounding than what Tupac was doing. But it's not differently bad or differently good, except for the Nazi element of Kanye's weird worldview. It's just different. It's just changing and morphing in medium. If you came along, I always say to my son is a college sophomore, I'll be like, if this song were played in the club, would people like it? Like It Takes Two by Rob Bass. No, not really. We're kind of the dance floor would stop. What about Jump Around by House of Pain? No, people wouldn't like. It's just always changing. It's kind of the coolness of music, is it's always changing.
I can't believe people wouldn't love the two songs you just mentioned.
I don't know, man. It's just a different world. I don't even know if I don't know if kids today, I don't think an 18-year-old kid knows It Takes Two. Maybe they heard like mom playing it in the car one time, but I don't think people would be jumping up and down to it. I do think California Love by Tupac and Dr. Dre has a ubiquitousness that's kind of unique. And I think maybe that would work, but I don't know. Maybe you need a remix of it or something.
Well, but it's interesting though, because I feel like when we were kids, we loved music from the past, meaning like, I grew up, let's say I was a teenager in the 80s, but I loved Led Zeppelin, for instance. I loved the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and they were 2 decades earlier. So why is it that kids now don't know the music that was 2 decades earlier or 3 decades earlier?
No, I disagree with that. I can speak for my kids. My kids are very, very aware of, and not just because their dad is a guy who loves music or their mom is a person who loves music. My kids know music. And I do think one thing that hip hop does, it's very, very interesting, and definitely has done for my son. You have sampling and you start wondering what the original song was. And then you look and you see, all right, this is an example, like Hit 'Em Up by Tupac. There's a Dennis Edwards song, Don't Look Any Further. And that's a sample of it. And then you look at that song and you think, well, who was the songwriter in that? And then you look. I think that's timeless. I honestly do. I do not agree. We'd sound like two grandpas if we were like, kids today, they don't like music beyond so-and-so. My son loves the Rolling Stones and he's a college kid.
But you just said that they might not even know, like It Takes Two.
Sure. No. Well, they know it from their mom playing in the car. I just don't think it's a song that translates to clubs, And I don't think, also, so hip hop is really interesting. Like they'll know Jay-Z. Like they'll know the song. A hip hop kid now will know Jay-Z, not just because he's kind of a current artist, but there is a little bit of a hip hop timelessness to the sound of Jay-Z. He's still, the way he does syllables now is pretty much the way he was doing it 25 years ago. They'll still know the music of Eminem from 20 years ago because Eminem is just a super duper star. Even Kanye, they know the College Dropout, even though College Dropout was a long time ago now. So I guess maybe it just depends on the artist. And also, if you think about it, we are living in the first real era of hip hop oldies. It's never been hip hop oldies because hip hop is a new medium. So like there were medium-e's, but like nowadays, Run DMC is an oldie. Listening to Run DMC for a kid in college is the equivalent of us listening to Sinatra in college. Same exact thing. And I wasn't listening to Sinatra in college. I don't know many of my friends who were listening to Sinatra in college. So I guess it depends on the artist. Maybe listening to Jay-Z is like listening to Skinner when I was in concert or college, or the Zeppelin or something like that. I guess it kind of depends on the artist and what the sound is.
And so with Tupac, what to you made him stand out?
I think the biggest thing is how he was informed. Like I really do. I was talking to someone the other day about, actually my son, we were talking about this, how like I've been shocked that artists like Dr. Dre, artists from out here in California, Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, haven't really had a peep to say about the ICE raids, right? Like you have people going around grabbing brown people in masks, grabbing them, taking them off the street, right? No matter how people feel about it. That's a pretty jarring freaking thing to go through. None of these guys are saying anything about it. Now, a lot of white people aren't saying anything about it either. But in this case, hip hop's case, these guys aren't saying anything about it. And I was really bothered by that and still kind of am. The difference between Tupac and those guys is Tupac, from his mom being a Black Panther, representing herself in the Panther 21 trial, being 21 years old, pregnant with her son, being shuttled back and forth from jail every day in this sweep up of Black Panthers in New York City in 1971. Tupac was taught it's not just, hip hop isn't just storytelling. I was growing up in Compton and I had this happen to me, and now I'm going to tell you about what happened to me. The police messed with me. I'm going to tell you, it was about action. Like he was raised by a woman and an idea that was a call to action. And that's why I think nowadays Tupac would be livid. My guess is livid about what's going on and probably on the front line, giving the middle fingers to ICE agents. And I think that's really interesting how he was informed, that he was informed by this idea that what you do, including music, it isn't just performative. It's your life. That's why when after the Rodney King happened, for good or for bad, Tupac is driving through LA, going into liquor stores with the other rioters and taking bottles. You know, like it's why he was out there. It's why he was getting in a fight with Alan Hughes on this, set of Menace to Society. He was a very visceral rapper and a very visceral human being. I think that comes from his mom, for good and for bad.
He was one of the few rappers at that time who was making this transition into movies pretty successfully, like being in Menace to Society, Poetic Justice. What do you think motivated him to do that? I mean, obviously success and fame and the glory of being a movie star is part of it, but why he and not the other rappers at the time? I mean, of course, Ice Cube later was doing a lot of movies. Method Man later was doing movies, but he was doing it almost before he was successful as a rap star.
Yeah. So first he was fired from Menace to Society. So actually never wound up in Menace to Society. He was going to be in it. Well, Tupac was a performing arts kid. I mean, he first attended the Baltimore School of Performing Arts, later he was in the theater program at Tam High School. When he was a younger boy, he was in the theater program in Harlem and performed in A Raisin in the Sun, and in fact performed during a Jesse Jackson fundraiser at the Apollo in '84 as an actor. I think a lot of people, maybe Tupac included, would think of himself first and foremost as an actor. It's interesting because he only got the Juice part. So Juice was his first major motion picture. And the only reason he got it, he was running lines with Money B from Digital Underground. And Money B was planning on auditioning. And Tupac accompanied him to the audition in New York City. Jackie Brown was the casting director for Juice. Money B goes in, Tupac's just waiting there for him. Money B comes out, he was terrible, he's not a good actor, he told me. And the casting director, Jackie Brown, looks at Tupac and said, "What's your name?" He said, "Tupac Shakur." He said, what part are you auditioning for? He said, "Bishop." And he doesn't look anything like what they want of Bishop. They want a big, hulking, intimidating looking guy. Tupac was a, small guy and with beautiful features. And Tupac goes in and just kills it. And she calls in Ernest Dickerson, the director, and Gerard Brown, one of the writers, and says, do it for them, do it for them. And he does it for them. And they offer him the part that day. And he just was a natural actor. He was more of a natural actor than he was probably a natural rapper. And when I interviewed Jim Belushi, who was with him on Gang Related, he said to me he thought Tupac was probably 1 or 2 movies away from an Academy Award. Like, he was that good. And if you watch the movies he was in, he wasn't in great movies. Like, Juice is a good movie with some flaws. Poetic Justice, I think, is a bad movie. Gridlock, Gang Related, kind of forgettable. Bullet is garbage. But he's always the best part of the movie. He just had something about him that was really, really performative.
It does seem like, again, his performing arts background really helped him. And also, how much of his persona was performance, in the sense that he really did come across, to me as a kid at that time, or not a kid, but I was a young adult. He did come across with this whole gangster persona, and he went to jail. He was getting in trouble with the law. He was, Death Row Records, Suge Knight. So he had this whole gangster thing going on, even though I only learned later that it wasn't really his background.
I kind of think of it like when you go to a restaurant and you have a waiter, and the waiter says, oh, how's your meal? And you're like, oh, it's great. And he's like, oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Would you guys like some refills on your soda? You say, if it's not too much trouble, oh, that would be great. I would love to do that. That's great. And the waiter leaves and is on has to take a quick cigarette break, and is talking to his girlfriend on the phone, complaining about his life as a waiter, right? Like, we all do this. We all do this. We all have our different moments in different areas. And Tupac was kind of a chameleon. And when he was with Death Row had certain expectations. I don't think he was consciously saying, I'm going to fool these people. I just think he adapted. I spoke with one of his teachers, Mrs. Greenleaf, a white older woman. Like, to her, Tupac was a delight and a joy and intellectually curious. When you interview Etron Gregory, who had a Digital Underground, Tupac was young and immature and crazed and just wanted to have sex and smoke weed and perform. When you talk to someone when he was in prison, he was very studious, and he was reading The Prince by Machiavelli, and he was, writing notes and just keeping his head on a swivel and being careful. I just think, like the waiter who is very polite, but then takes a cigarette break and then maybe goes home and plays with his daughter, and then maybe drives his motorcycle and is, reckless. I think all of us have different sides to us. I just don't think most of us are as famous as Tupac, or maybe they're as dramatic as Tupac. But I don't think he was fake. I just think he had different sides to him.
Yeah, because then, of course, maybe the performance bled into reality, because he did obviously get in trouble, go to jail, do some things maybe that weren't so good. And ultimately leading up to his death, when he was kind of in over his head, basically, in this fight that he got into in Las Vegas. I mean, I think people thought always, oh, it's this New York, California beef that caused Tupac's death and Biggie's death. But ultimately, it turns out wasn't really that at all.
No, not at all. He definitely fanned the flames of sort of violence, especially when he records Hit 'Em Up. And that takes everything to kind of a new level. And all of a sudden, we're all talking about the East Coast, West Coast battle. And, there's a lot of stuff. Snoop Dogg someone shot at his trailer when he was filming a video in New York, and on and on and on. But his death is really, he's in Vegas for the Mike Tyson-Bruce Seldon fight at the MGM Grand. And he goes to the fight with a bunch of Death Row guys. And all those Death Row was affiliated with Mob Piru, which is a sect of the Bloods. And after the fight, they're in the lobby, a bunch of them, and he's next to a guy named Trayvon Lane, who's a Blood. And Trayvon Lane spots this kid, Orlando Anderson, in the lobby. And Orlando Anderson was Crips affiliated, Southside Compton Crips. And a couple of weeks earlier, Orlando Anderson, they'd been in an altercation. Orlando Anderson snatched this guy's Death Row medallion. So this guy, Trayvon Lane, sees Orlando Anderson wearing a Dan Marino Miami Dolphins jersey and says, yo, that's the guy who took my chain. And Tupac says, which guy? And he goes, right there. And Tupac, who had the impulse control of a pen, sadly, walked up to him, said, you from the South, and punched him. And all the Death Row guys came and beat the crap out of him. And, they all leave, and Tupac's feeling great about himself, and he's kind of bragging about how he beat up this guy. Did you see how he kicked his ass? And you're Orlando Anderson. You're a member of the Crips. Like, you just got publicly beat up by a rapper. Not by a gangbanger, but by a rapper. Like you could live with being beat up by a gangbanger. It happens. You could live getting pistol whipped by someone who's been in a million fights. It happens. But everyone just saw you get your ass kicked by Tupac Shakur, the rapper, the little rapper. And I interviewed one of Orlando Anderson's good friends, a fellow Compton Crip, who said to me pretty bluntly, like, he couldn't come back. Like, how's he going to come back to Compton? I mean, he could come back, but how's he going to come back with any sort of integrity or decency knowing you just got your ass kicked by Tupac? So later on that night, Orlando Anderson, his uncle Keefe D, a couple of other guys affiliated with the Compton Crips are driving around Vegas. They go to Suge Knight's club. They can't find him. They're looking around. They're kind of resigned to the fact that they're not going to be able to find Tupac and get some kind of retribution. But then they see him driving along the strip. Suge Knight's driving the BMW. Tupac is hanging out the window, hollering at women. There he is. There he is. They pull up on him. They shoot him. Ultimately, he dies. And it's a very upsetting death to me. Even just talking about it, I hate it. Because Tupac was just too talented and too gifted and too brought up with a really lift up your brothers and sisters kind of idea to go out like that. Like, it was just stupid. He didn't die for anything. I hate that he didn't die for anything. He should have been a guy, honestly, who stood up to police when they were brutal, as he had done in the past, as they were like brutalizing a black motorist, and go out that way, or should have gone out leading a march, or should have gone out in the Middle East standing up for whatever, like he had greatness about him, and he died in such a not great way.
How did the guy who actually pulled the trigger, how did he eventually get caught? Because it was only in 2023.
He didn't get caught. He got shot. He got killed.
Oh,
he was murdered. Yeah, he was murdered. So
how did they know though that it was him?
I don't even remember. It was like 2 years after he shot Tupac. Was it 2 years after he shot Tupac? It was a decent amount of time after he shot Tupac. And he was killed in a revenge killing, and that was it.
And the irony is, like, Biggie and Tupac were, I don't know if they were friends at that exact moment, but like when Tupac was first shot, you mentioned in the book how Biggie and Puffy even showed up at the hospital.
Correct. And then Biggie wanted to visit him when he was in Clinton, at Clinton Correctional Facility, the prison. Tupac was like, F that guy, I'm not letting him come. Biggie was dumbfounded that Tupac held him in blame for his shooting at Quad Studios. So, it's kind of a weird, it's just sad. The whole thing is sad. It was this time period where people were caught up in something that was half real, half contrived, that didn't really mean anything. These are two gifted young artists, smart guys who rose up from tough circumstances to become, great. And for them to both go out like that is just disturbing. It just sucks. It's no different than Kurt Cobain's death. It's a senseless time period of artists, Shannon Hoon of Blind Melon and, these guys and Cobain. It just sucks. It all sucks. I hate it all. I do.
Take a quick break. If you like this episode, I'd really, really appreciate it. It means so much to me. Please share it with your friends and subscribe to the podcast. Email me at altucher@gmail.com and tell me why you subscribed. Thanks.
This November, action is free on Pluto TV. Go on the run with Jack Reacher.
Every suspect was a trained killer.
Then buckle up for Drive, World War Z.
Every human being we save is one less to fight.
And Charlie's Angels.
Damn, I hate to fly.
Launch into sci-fi adventure with The Fifth Element and laugh through the mayhem in Tropic Thunder.
What is going on here?
All the thrills, all for free. Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.
Being an entrepreneur is a 24/7 job. And when you're hiring, you need a partner that works as hard as you do. That hiring partner is LinkedIn Jobs. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, get qualified candidates that you can manage all in one place. For one thing, you could post a job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people. You get qualified candidates. At the end of the day, the most important thing to your business is the quality of the candidates. And with LinkedIn, of course, you can feel confident that you're getting the best. Based on LinkedIn data, 72% of small and medium businesses say using LinkedIn helps them find high-quality candidates. Find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Altucher. That's linkedin.com/Altucher to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
What can 160 years of experience teach you about the future? When it comes to protecting what matters, Pacific Life provides life insurance, retirement income, and employee benefits for people and businesses building a more confident tomorrow. Strategies rooted in strength and backed by experience. Ask a financial professional how Pacific Life can help you today. Pacific Life Insurance Company, Omaha, Nebraska, and in New York. Pacific Life and Annuity, Phoenix, Arizona.
I feel like at that exact time, like the mid 90s, Shakur and Biggie were probably the two best storytellers. I always thought of their rap as like they were great storytellers, as opposed to, every rapper was good at something, but for them it was the storytelling, and in some ways they were very similar. I felt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Tupac had something Biggie didn't, which is Shock G from Digital Underground talked about it. A lot of rappers rap from them, from the nose, from the mouth, from the throat, and that Tupac rap from the stomach, from the gut. And I do think he and DMX later shared that thing where it's like, it's not just I'm telling you a story. I'm making you feel this story. Like I'm putting a bunch of rocks in your hand and you need to feel the weight of it. I do think Tupac had that. But yeah, man, I think both Biggie, and the crazy thing is Tupac was really a New York trained rapper. Like he was learning to rap and rhyme and do stuff on the streets of New York, on the steps outside his aunt's apartment in the Bronx. Like he wasn't really a West Coast rapper. I mean, he identified with the West Coast, but I would say he was New York born and trained, Baltimore bred, Oakland created, and Los Angeles finalized.
It was funny that he was in Digital Underground. Like Digital Underground seemed very different. I mean, I loved Digital Underground when they came out. It was odd that Tupac evolved from that to be Tupac.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, same song. Listen to his verse and same song. It's amazing. And I think that Digital Underground changed that guy's life. He was had kind of given up on hip hop and was in Atlanta working with a civil rights group as kind of a youth leader. He'd given up. He was like, to hell with this. He was very impatient his whole life, very impatient. And he gets a call, do you want to be a roadie with Digital Underground? And it's like, what do I do as a roadie? And it's basically like, well, you carry stuff, you move stuff, you lug stuff, but we also might give you time on the mic. He's like, time on the mic? I'm in. And he moves back to the West Coast and he immediately starts touring with Digital Underground. And his job there, he would appear on some songs, but his main thing was he would like be the hype man, almost like Flavor Flav before the act, where he'd show up in leopard print underwear, throwing out like sex packets to the crowd. And then he started performing more and more and more. So
how did he break out from that?
Well, first of all, they started giving him verses, and he, had this idea. He wound up getting a record deal with Interscope, same label as Digital Underground, for this album, Tupacalypse Now. Used a lot of producers and such from Digital Underground to do it. And he comes out with this song, Brenda's Got a Baby. And Brenda's Got a Baby, for me, kind of put him on the map. So, that was a big thing for him, the arrival of that song and the emphasis of that song.
I love the story you tell about Brenda Has a Baby.
Yo, sure. I mean, I love that song. I think it's insanely important. I do. I think it's really, really important. And he basically was filming the movie Juice in 1991, and he reads an article in the Daily News called Cries in the Night. And the article is about this 12-year-old girl who was raped by a cousin in the Noble Drew Ali public housing unit in Brooklyn, delivers a baby alone on the bathroom floor, doesn't know what to do, takes the baby, puts it in a plastic bag, throws it down the trash chute. People are working in the basement that day where they have the trash compactor. It's a day it's supposed to get compacted. They hear a baby or a cat crying, and the guy who I interviewed finds the baby and is like, what the hell is this? Like that. What the hell is this? And he basically saves the baby. And Tupac reads the article in the Daily News and says to Omar Epps, his co-star, oh my God, I got to go into my trailer. And he writes a song, Brenda's Got a Baby. So I knew about that story, but no one had ever found the baby. So I worked with a genealogist named Michelle Sully, who's just amazing. And she said, let me give it a shot. And a few days later, she comes up with a phone number. And she's like, I think this is him. And I reached out to this kid named Davon Hodge. And we ended up meeting at in Las Vegas, where he lives, at a Starbucks. and he's telling me the story, trash heap, the whole thing. He's adopted by Las Vegas parents. They died a few years ago. He does an Ancestry.com search. All these tentacles come back to Brooklyn. He reaches out. They're like, do you know who you are? He's like, it's like, Davon? And they're like, well, you were your mom, this article. Show him the article. And we also think you were the inspiration of Brenda's Got a Baby, the Tupac song. He's like, I love Tupac. Like, we think you're that song. All this happens. His visit is amazing. He goes back to Brooklyn. He takes a photo of him next to the trash chute where he was thrown down, meets, aunts and uncles and cousins, but he hadn't seen his mom. So Michelle Sully, the genealogist of the gods, goes back and finds this woman and reaches out to her and says, by any chance, did you have a baby when you were 12 years old? And she's like, who is this? It's, well, my name's Michelle. I work with this author, Jeff Pearlman. We're doing a Tupac book. Is this you? And she starts screaming and crying. You know where my baby is? You know where my baby is? Oh my God, what? You know where my baby is? Yeah. And she's like, I need to get home. I'm away from home for a concert. I need to get back to my home in Newark, New Jersey. And she says, well, where do you, what concert are you seeing? Well, I'm seeing the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And where's the show? It's in Las Vegas. And that night she met with her baby for the first time.
And did you ever track down the cousin who had raped the 12-year-old girl who was the father?
I was not able to. In fact, I think that person is dead. So,
okay.
No.
And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of art takes the wrong direction when they're trying to have a message, which is that the message is too obvious. And I feel like with that song, he tells a story about this real event that happens, and just the telling the story is the impact, not actually kind of deriving meaning from it or applying any sort of meaning to it. Just telling the story is what creates the impact. And I think a lot of theater is like political theater where they try too hard to say what their message is in the story. And with Tupac, he's like you say, he just got this idea from a New York Post article and
Daily News.
Or Daily News, yeah, and just does it as a song, and it becomes like this hit.
Wait, it's really interesting you say that. Actually, you're the first person who's brought this up. It is it's funny how we are, right? Like we'll listen to a Bob Dylan song or a Joni Mitchell song or whatever, Nirvana, doesn't even matter, or Olivia Rodrigo, and you're like, wait, what are they talking about? And you'll have someone will say, well, the tree represents her feelings in the spring, and the falling fruit represents her heartbreaking. You know what I mean? Like, and that's really cool. Like, I actually love that. I think that's really neat. I think great songwriting, metaphor and simile and analogies are wonderful. And in a lot of ways, Brenda's Got a Baby is not one of Tupac's best songs because it's extraordinarily literal, right? And it also does sound old-fashioned now. Like, it is very Brenda's got a baby, but Brenda's barely got a brain. A damn shame. The girl can hardly spell her name. Like, it sounds from a different time period in a lot of ways. It's very ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum. But I agree with you. I think the literalness of that song is very important. He's just telling a story. It's no different than, I mean, this is going to sound corny, like writery, but like you and I sit down for a slice of pizza and you tell me the story about your day. And you're like, I met this amazing guy this morning. He was really interesting. He sold me cell phones, but he also told me he knew God. I asked him why he knew God, and he said, I knew God because he used to go to synagogue as a kid. Like, that's basically what Brenda's Got a Baby is. It's a very literal story, but it's done really well. And the video, directed by Alan Hughes of all people, is fantastic. The black and white, Ethel Love as the mom. It's really good.
You know, again, I wonder how Tupac would have evolved in style if he kept going, if he remained alive.
Impossible for me to say, but I think he would have. This is also impossible for me to say, but it's a little more of an educated guess. I just think he would have dove much more into acting and maybe faded a tiny bit away from hip hop. And I think, because, you know, it's hard to be an older act in hip hop. Like, most people are not. And they wind up sort of, and this is no indictment of anyone, but like the 90s throwback tour with Kid and Play and Vanilla Ice and Young MC. And it's hard to be Jay-Z, right? It's really hard to be Jay-Z, Nas, Eminem. Like, those are the three greats of survival and evolving, but it's an incredible hard medium to do so. So I could see Tupac more taking the, you know, I just think he had that kind of Robert Redford, Pacino, you know, Denzel kind of thing in him. And I also think he would have been a guy who would have like taken to the streets. Maybe he would be congressman. I tell you, Can I tell you a 2-second crazy story about Tupac that I think explains his direction?
Of course.
So Tupac had a hip hop group called Thug Life. And they were touring with a group called Lords of the Underground, a group out of New Jersey, Lords of the Underground. The Lords of the Underground's main rapper was a guy named Dupree Kelly. His nickname was Do It All Dupree Kelly. And one day they're in Orlando, and one of the members of Lords of the Underground is late. And they're all in the kind of van waiting to go to the arena. And Tupac is getting really mad. And this guy, Do It All, Dupree Kelly, stands up for his guy. He's like, no, Tupac, give him time. And Tupac's like, fuck that guy, blah, blah, blah. And again, this heated argument. And Dupree Kelly, they wind up, the gig got canceled, actually. They wound up not going. Dupree Kelly goes back to his motel room. A few minutes later, knock on the door. He looks through the people, and it's Tupac standing there. And before he answers, he picks up the hotel phone, and he calls one of his other guys from Lords of the Underground. He says, yo, Pac is at my door. And guy goes, well, what does he want? He's like, I don't know, but I'm just giving you a heads up. All right. Answers the door. Tupac is holding some 40s. Someone thought I meant guns. I meant beers, 40 ounces. And he lets, he's like, you ain't going to let me in? He goes, all right, come on in. He goes, listen, they sit down on the beds. Tupac goes, listen, man, I do not like the way you talk to me. Like, I didn't like that. He goes, but I love that you stood up for your guys. Like, I love that you stood up for your guys. That is what we as Black men need to do. We don't just need to stand up for our guys. We need to stand up for our communities. And Dupree Kelly's like, what do you mean? He's like, we need to get involved. We need to represent. You need to represent Newark harder. I need to represent Oakland harder. Cube needs to represent LA harder. In fact, we need to be involved. We can't just have laws made about us. We need to be legislators. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, we need to start making laws. And that might mean we need to run for office. We need to hold positions. Like, we may need to do that. And when I was interviewing Dupree Kelly, he was a Newark, New Jersey city councilman. And he told me that talk from Tupac was a talk that set him on his way and truly put it in his head. And I love that so much. Like, I could not love that story more. And I do believe that was a course that Tupac was headed down. I really do.
Wow, that's an incredible story. I mean, look, and you look at the impact rap has had on society, even from back then, like all the debates about censorship, like 2 Live Crew, which is the last group you would think to be at the center of a controversy about censorship and then successfully take it all the way to the Supreme Court and win. And yet that happened. That's a thing that happened.
Yeah. I played, talking about songs that don't age well, maybe 3 months ago, I played Me So Horny for my son, who's 19. He just had this confused look on his face. Like, how is this a thing?
Because it almost sounds like a parody of rap.
Oh my God. I think Luke Campbell knew it was a parody, but like, it's such a ridiculous song. And it's not even, I mean, all due respect is that he had a great career and he's had a great prolonged career. It's not really that listenable to. Like, I think it was the shock value of that song that really did it. It was a bizarre time. That was a really bizarre time in hip hop. Also a big Miami rap act when not that much was coming out of Miami as far as hip hop. Very weird. That was weird.
But Luke now is like active in the community and he has these like baseball leagues and
he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's amazing. Yeah, he's an amazing guy. A lot of old hip hop artists have really stepped up in the community and they've done stuff and they've gotten involved. And there are no shortage of hip hop artists who run community centers, who started education programs. Just it's a lot. The thing that people miss, I think, especially white snooty people who don't get it, is these are really intelligent guys. Like, they're songwriters. They are songwriters or they're beat makers. Like, those are not two things that just Schlo Blow can do with an IQ of 6. Like, Tupac was wickedly intelligent. Not just wickedly intelligent. He wrote songs at a breakneck pace. He had stuff just, someone give him a beat, top of his head, 5 minutes in, we'd write these songs. I mean, the stories of people told me of him as a songwriter in the studio, hopping back from one console to another, working on this song. No, we got to do it this way. He was a brilliant, brilliant mind. He was a brilliant mind. Like, brilliant, brilliant mind. Like, if he took an IQ test, he would soar past mine, which isn't saying that much, but he was just really intelligent. I think a lot of people look at, those rappers, right? It's kind of a thing. Those rappers. I don't think I interviewed a hip hop artist for this book who is not a very intelligent man or woman.
Well, it's got to be. It's got to be hard on so many different levels. Just the production, the musicality, the performance, the storytelling. Who's your? I mean, I have to ask. Who's your top five?
I would go. This is no order. I'll just do my top five: Tupac, Nas, Tribe Called Quest, J. Cole, modern, and I would go Public Enemy. Even though it's kind of old school, but I still think Public Enemy resonates. And Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos was the first hip hop song that really, really, really woke me up to the genre. So there you go. Who are yours?
I'm going to be similar, but I throw in Wu-Tang Clan instead of Public Enemy.
That's
Like,
good.
I
think Nas is a genius. I think Nas, I don't know why, but Nas, he has to be considered one of the 5 greatest artists of all time, right? For some reason, people overlook him, and he's so ridiculously good. And he's the one guy, we saw him in concert a couple years ago, and he did not feel dated at all. At all. He's the one guy, him, I guess Jay-Z to a certain degree, Eminem to a certain degree, who has defied the hands of time and never became a novelty act in hip hop.
I agree about Nas, and I just saw a video where he's playing with like the Boston Symphony Orchestra or some symphony, and it was like an incredible performance. I loved it.
Also, like, think how hard that is. There's an album where Hanson, the rock band Hanson, plays with the like Sydney Orchestra, and it just sounds not good. Like, it sounds stupid. It's almost like they're exposed, right? Like, Hanson was fine. They had a few songs, whatever, but they sound exposed. Nas doesn't sound exposed. Nas is, I'm telling you, I don't understand. Maybe if Nas had died at 25 years old, we'd be talking about the mystique of Nas. And there is something, I don't say that flippantly. I mean, there is something about young death that adds to a mystique and makes you talk about someone longer than you would. I always say, if Chuck D had died at 25 years old, we'd be sitting at the altar of Chuck D and saying, oh my God, this guy was this revolutionary who was shot down in his prime. Instead, happily, we've seen Chuck D become a 60-something-year-old man and an elder statesman of hip hop, which is cool, but it doesn't have the mystique. And I think the same goes for a lot of these guys. Like, I think a lot of Tupac and Biggie, they were great, but a lot of it is a mystique of young death also. Same with Cobain. What if we saw Kurt Cobain get clean and become a folk singer? Like, we'd be like, oh, remember those Nirvana albums? Those are really good. It's kind of weird how it works.
Oh, I want to throw Mobb Deep onto the list also.
Come on.
I love Mobb Deep.
And they had a new album. They just released music, and it's good. So there you go.
I used to do the websites for all these guys. So in the 90s, I had a company making websites for basically entertainment companies. So I did Loud Records. I did all the Bad Boy stuff. I did a lot of Interscope stuff. This was slightly after Death Row was a thing. So I had, so Suge Knight was in jail at the time, although I was doing a lot of Interscope artists who had been with Death Row. And so I was immersed in that whole world then, and, not as much later, but I just loved it all. And then I feel like since the 90s, it just had, maybe this is me being an old man speaking. I feel like it hasn't been as good, but, of course, that's what was my formative years. So
here's a trivia question for you. Can you tell me who the first Interscope artists were? The first artist signed by Interscope?
Ever? So this was Jimmy Iovine, the first guy who started Interscope. But I'm trying to think who was the first one he signed.
Well, they approached Tupac, and he was basically like, "What is this album? What is this label?" And
I think it's got to be Dr. Dre.
No, way before that. It was the guy who did Rico Suave.
Oh, I don't know.
You know that song, Suave, Suave, Rico? It was a really bad rap, and it was Marky Mark.
You're kidding.
No, and then they had Primus was another act they had. Yeah, this is
and
then Tupac.
Primus, are they the ones they did the South Park theme?
Is that I didn't know. I thought that was is that not Cake? Is that South?
No,
is that Primus?
It's Primus. I know because I did their website for Interscope.
Oh, that's so funny. So that was what Tupac desperately needed a record deal. Nobody was interested. Atron Gregory, Digital Underground's manager, was shopping it, and Interscope comes along, and it's like, well, what have you done? We did Rico Suave, we got Marky Mark, and we got Primus, and it's like, I'll take it. I mean, like, all right, that's cool. Somebody wants me. So,
well, they were owned by Time Warner too at the time, so they had the big company behind them.
Yeah, true. They did have the money behind
until Time Warner spun them off because of, in part, Tupac. Like the violent lyrics. There was the whole Tipper Gore thing going on.
Well, it's also still confusing. I still find it confusing, even though I wrote the book, how, like, all right, Death Row put up the bail money for Tupac, but really Interscope, Death Row was under the umbrella of Interscope. So it was kind of Interscope, kind of Death Row, really Interscope, but they could say it's Death Row. You know what I mean? It was basically all semantical. It was like, Death Row did it. We had nothing to do with this. Tupac's not our artist anymore. He's Death Row's artist. We're just making a lot of money off of it, but it's not us.
But that's how all these record labels were. None of them, like both Bad Boy and Loud Records, which was the Wu-Tang Clan and Mobb Deep, actually, they were funded by BMG. So they were all kind of like, it's like these big companies were VC firms funding these startups and not really involved in the day-to-day. And these startups would just, do their thing.
Yeah, well, nowadays, it's like everything. Corporate consolidation is one of the deaths of America. You have the owner of the Washington Post, also the owner of Amazon, also the owner of X, giving large swaths of money to the White House, but saying, I'm going to have an independent newspaper. I mean, this is not to get too deep into it, but in a way, that was the early age of, we're not really involved, but give us some money, So Interscope, Death Row, Suge Knight, Jimmy Iovine.
Yeah, and then you look at how they all protected themselves. So when the whole censorship thing was happening with like violent and gangster lyrics and so on, okay, Time Warner said, we're wiping ourselves clean of this. We're Interscope's going independent. And all Interscope did was that they got sold to Universal, which at that point was a Canadian company. A Canadian, they had bought a water company, combined it with, the Bronfman family bought this water company, combined it with this U.S. entertainment company. In the middle, they were a Canadian company and they bought Interscope. So it was just all smoke and mirrors.
You and I are about the same age, and we've been around long enough that like, it's very hard to hold on to idealism. And you just see like greed just trumps all. And like this idea, like, oh my God, they all knew what they were putting out with the Ice-T album, like Cop Killer, Body Count. They knew what that was. Of course they knew what that was. They'd heard the lyrics. They thought it would sell really well and it would do great and it would be this thing. The minute Dan Quayle catches onto it and George Bush catches onto it and it becomes a public outcry, oh no, it's not ours. But they're still reaping profits off of it, and like the truth is they should have never pulled back from the beginning. They should have just stood by their artist and endured, because Ice-T was a legit artist. He wasn't a joke, but it sucks.
Well, look, like Ice-T now is more known for whatever it is, Law and Order. Well, what's the show he's in?
Yeah, Law and Order. He's had an amazing career. Yeah. Ice-T has had an amazing career.
Oh,
yeah.
I love Ice-T. I've been on his podcast. He's a great guy.
He said something about Tupac. I didn't actually interview him. I wanted to. I didn't get him, but he said he was talking about Tupac and his affiliation with Death Row at the end, and people are like, was Tupac a gangbanger? And he goes, nobody joins a gang at 25. That's ridiculous. He goes, the idea that you're joining a gang at 20, you join a gang when you're 16 and you're kind of recruited and you're young and dumb and don't know what you're doing and you're seeking protection. You're not joining a gang when you're 25. And in a way, that was a little bit of the ridiculousness of Tupac, because he kind of started identifying with Mob Piru. He got a Mob Piru tattoo. He's shouting out Mob Piru. He wasn't of Mob Piru, but he was a symbol of them. And if you're an 18-year-old gangbanger and this hip-hop icon is shouting you out, you're not going to complain about it. But it was always kind of silly that he saw himself, fancied himself a gangbanger, when the truth of the matter is he was this beautiful mind, this amazing poet who was generating a lot of income for a lot of people.
Well, I mean, I love the story. I love the book. And it was great to read something new about Tupac after all these years. And it just reminded me of a lot of different things in the book, which I mentioned in the intro. The book is Only God Can Judge Me by Jeff Pearlman, The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about Tupac and rap with me. It's a great pleasure.
I do want to say something that bothers me.
Tell me.
That bothers me. You are 4 years older than me. You have all your hair. I have no hair. This is some serious garbage. And I just want to know, I'm going to make an offer to you. I will send you the complete collected works of Jeff Pearlman, my entire baseball card collection, my iPhone case, and 33 stamps if you're willing to swap hair.
Well, if you have to tell me in detail the condition of all the baseball cards, and maybe.
Damn it. It's like 150 Mike Greenwell rookie cards. So I don't know if that interests you.
That not as much, but we could talk. It depends on the stamps too. Why didn't you collect comic books? I would have done this for comic books.
Wrong. I was all baseball cards. Maybe next time. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Very fun. Appreciate it.
This November, Action is free on Pluto TV. Go on the run with Jack Reacher.
Every suspect was a trained killer.
Then buckle up for Drive, World War Z,
Every human being we save is one less to fight.
and Charlie's Angels.
Damn, I hate to fly.
Launch into sci-fi adventure with The Fifth Element and laugh through the mayhem in Tropic Thunder.
What is going on here?
All the thrills, all for free. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.